Right. It's been a while since I've been in there, but I know it's.
Hello, everybody. Hello. How many of you brought your smartphone with you?
No.
Well, if you did, take it out. Take it out. Turn it off. But take a picture of the person sitting next to you. I want you to share it on Facebook. She laughs, but I'll get her, don't worry. At some point, you're going to hear about marketing, and this is just a quick and easy way to share when you're somewhere with a group of people. So if you would take a picture of the person next to you, I love this, or a selfie of a group. Roberta and Deb, maybe together. Jocelyn? Are you ready? Oh, you already done it. That's good. So if at any point you need to get up and leave, that's fine. The restroom's out this way and down the hall. Feel free to text, to tweet, to Facebook, all about me. Just kidding. I would like you to keep track of, if you do those things, to feel free to use them, definitely. Are you ready to begin?
Sure.
My name is Deb Brown. Most of you have seen me this week. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. I have been in town since Thursday afternoon, and I'm going to share with you what people want in your community, because I spent many days talking to lots of people and asked them, what do you want? What do you want in your town? What's good for Fostoria? So I'm going to share what you wanted, and then I'm going to talk to you about the idea-friendly method, which is a method to accomplish some of the things that you may want to do. And I'm going to share some examples from other small towns to kind of give you a heads up of what other people are doing as well. So let's begin. These will go in order, and what a big majority of people said is they want a better image for Fostoria, to have the perspective of prosperity, and not so much locally within towns, but to get your towns around you to know how fabulous you are. Now, you taking pictures this morning or this afternoon at the beginning of this presentation helps to share that kind of thing. Because you're going to post, we had this great meeting at the Learning Center. Have you seen it? You'll share where you're at. You'll share about the people that you're sitting with. And you'll share about the ideas in your community as well. Each and every day you wake up and you have the choice to make a difference where you live. You have the choice to believe this is a great town and we're going to have a great future. You have never been more important or in a better position to make change for you and for Fostoria. So when you wake up tomorrow morning, I want you to think about that. When you have a great idea, I want you to text Eric, right? Yeah, because he can do something about it. But even more importantly, so can you. The second thing that people wanted was less apathy. They wanted a positive campaign about the city. Step up or shut up. Share about what's already here. Get young people involved. And local start supporting local. Let's talk about leaders, volunteers, and city things. This is a whole group of stuff. Better leadership and involved youth. And I think by better leadership, what I pulled out of that was more active leadership. People that worked more in your community to make it a better community, including things like participation in boards and elected positions. I know in 2019, on your city council, 3 at-large positions come up for election, along with the mayor, the auditor, the lawyer, and head guru for the city council, right? I forget the name of it.
Yeah, and at-large city council people.
Yeah, 3 of those. So if you really want to make change and you live here, run for city council. Or go talk to Eric about maybe serving on the zoning board or some of the commissions. There are plenty of opportunities to give back in both small and large ways. Interesting enough, we talked about infrastructure, but I had students tell me they wanted better sidewalks, or sidewalks period in some parts of the community, and yellow lines down the street. Because they want to be a better driver. They don't want to run into parked cars. They want yellow lines down the middle of the street. I thought that was interesting. Of course, people wanted jobs and businesses. And I'm here to tell you, don't look for factories that bring jobs for 2,000 people. I think you've been through that experience already where they've left. But look for manufacturing, small-scale manufacturing, entrepreneurs, people that are working at home already and want to grow into their own business. So some of the things listed were the jobs, the skilled trade, and more small businesses. And the chief of police told me there are 256 job openings in town right now. Right now. Who do you know that's driving to Findlay for a job, or Tiffin? Let them know there's 256 job openings in town right now. And I'm not talking working at the Dairy Queen. I'm talking good paying jobs. People want to break the generational poverty. That's a big challenge. That really is a big idea. And one of the things that they repeated often was, fix it, but stop giving away lots of free stuff. People are under the impression lower income are moving here for the free stuff. I don't know if that's true, but I can tell you that's what people think. They would like to solve homelessness. They would like to train people and give them things like gas cards and services that really work, and fill the free classes. Learn how to do right here. Come see the Learning Center and learn how to do things here that can move you up into the job market. Downtown revitalization. You all recognize that building?
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody know who owns it? Please, somebody please raise their hand, because I couldn't find out. It would be nice to know who owned that and to revitalize that building. I think it may have real possibility. People want a more prosperous downtown. They also want more foot traffic. So get people off a county line and get them downtown. Think of ways to make that happen. Of course, they want to be entrepreneur friendly. And they want to fill the empty buildings. Not only downtown, I'll add, but around town. And then clean up the town was high on the list as well. This is a beautiful building, by the way. And it just makes my heart flutter thinking what could be done with this building. Clean up the town and everyone can help. Make your entries into town better looking. Rental housing needs to be fixed. It's my understanding there's one owner of 51 rental houses that's not doing anything about it. But you know what? Chief of Police told me there's also 60 charges against him in court.
And the house you just saw.
And the house I just saw. Thank you. It's good to have the mayor here to answer these sort of things. Students told me, let's do upkeeps on parks and graffiti. Some of the tunnels that you guys don't see have graffiti inside of them. Just those things that kids would know about. And I encourage them to call you. By the way, I gave your hotline out to everybody this week, because you told me I could, right? So don't hesitate to call Eric. But don't expect Eric to do all the work either. Share your ideas and share it with other people around you. And we'll talk about that in a minute. People also want entertainment, events, and food. So more activity in town. A movie theater. I don't know if it's possible. We can talk about it. Definitely more events and transportation to those events for people that are unable to drive themselves. That also involves a wider age of residents that can attend those things. Housing in schools. Fix the schools and have affordable housing. I don't know how to fix your schools. I don't live here. I shouldn't know how. I will share some stories with you, and I'll tell you what folks told me their ideas, but that's something for you to work on as both parents and grandparents, and students, I might add. And downtown second-story housing. The opportunity, what I know is people ages 30 to 45 talk a lot about living downtown and having a livable, walkable community so that you can walk to the Kroger, you can walk to the bars, you have a new brewery coming in, you can walk to the restaurants, and you can work from home. Do you know that 30% of the employees in Washington, D.C. don't live there? They work remotely all over the United States. You're a great town to have people come here and work remotely. Now we're going to talk about the idea-friendly method. You might want to write this down, those of you taking notes, because I will refer to it back and forth a lot. First of all, you gather your crowd with a big idea. So we'll talk about what it means to gather your crowd and what it means to have a big idea. Second of all, you turn that crowd into a really powerful network by building your connections. And then you and that crowd accomplish that great big idea by taking small steps. Now the beauty about these three pieces is they are interchangeable. You don't always have to do them in that order. So what is gather your crowd? Well, first of all, look around you. This is a crowd. You care about your community and you'd like to see things changed. This is one crowd. The old way to gather your crowd? Assign committees. Come on, everybody has those two old guys in their town, right? You know they're in mine. And you know how committees work. You have a meeting to have a meeting. You have a meeting to discuss last month's meeting. You have a meeting to prepare for the meeting coming, and you never get anything done. Committees are extensions of that. It's hard to get things done. The idea-friendly way is to plant your flag. What's your big idea? Think about, what do we really want to do here? What is our big idea? This is what you shared with me. You want to move the nonprofits to the plaza. You want to have more marketing for the community as a whole. You want to fix the school system. You want places to hang out, not just kids, but adults too. You'd like a bike path. You'd like your swimming pool. And you know what? Mostly old people told me that. Consider I'm old. I'm saying over 60 told me that. Basketball tournaments, and of course new businesses. As you can see, these are big, hairy ideas, some of them, most of them. But we can take small steps to get there. And you start with gathering your crowd. We know that community happens when people talk to each other. Carol, you see yourself? I would like to say thank you to Carol and Bill Ken, who hosted me during this stay. And this was the garden club, had a meeting at their house while I was here. And then you want to find out who likes your idea. So maybe you have an idea, well, that's your crowd. By the way, that's taken right here in town at the music store. And he has a huge selection of ukuleles. Not only that, he can teach you how to play it. Not too many music stores still left in the world, and this is a young man that has opened a music store. You cannot lose the people who were never yours. We call them the committee of negativity. You all know who's on that committee. Ignore them. Go around them. They were never going to help you, and they are never going to help you in the future. Ignore them. Because you know what happens? People start doing things, and that committee of negativity shows up and looks over the fence. What are you doing over there? What's going on over there? Maybe they'll come over and help you, but maybe they won't. Either way, it doesn't matter. Don't let them dissuade you from what it is that you're trying to do. Building connections. There's 3 ways to build your social capital. Bonding, social capital, is when you do things with people that you know, that you're friends with, that's your intimate little crowd. The building social capital is when I reach out to Eric, poor you, I'm going to pick on you all afternoon, because he works at the city. He's a city administrator. Mayor, sorry, I'll get it right yet. He's our mayor. So I can reach out to him and say, I need some resources to do this, this, and this. And he knows who to send me to. Where if I reach out to Carol, she may not know. And Carol is my bonding capital. You are my building capital. And the bridging capital is working with people you do not know at all. So I had the pleasure of meeting Jocelyn today. She's an intern at the chamber. I don't know her, but I do now. We had a conversation. We created some bridging social capital because that's somebody I do want to know. It's somebody you all want to know. She's a senior in college and she's worth knowing. So the old way to build connections was meetings with the STP. You know what the STP is, right? Same 10 people. Right? You get the same 10 tired people in the room. The idea-friendly way is to begin sharing connections. Introduce people to other people. Get involved in your community. Hi, come on in. We got a couple of chairs? I'm sure we do. Here's one here.
There's two there.
And one right there. So please come on in.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, when you apply the build connections, that concept, to the new way of creating jobs, what you're going to create is the rural jobs creation strategies. And I'm going to go through those so you can see what I'm talking about here. Business job fairs. In fact, this location is a great place for a business job fair, but you know what makes it even better? You want the kind of job fair where people can put their hands on things. They can talk to somebody about what it's really like to work there. Bring some employees. Bring some examples, if you can, of the kind of work that you do. If you need to take somebody to a job site, host your business job fair there. Give people a real opportunity to find out, other than fill out this application and we'll take a look at it and call you back. Let them know if they want to even fill out the application. That's what a business job fair will do. And you've had some really good ones here, so I look forward to seeing more of those keep coming. Business resource night. It's a little bit different. This is for entrepreneurs, so those who are thinking of starting a business, those that just started one, and those that would like to expand their small business. And this is in my community. We partnered up, Wright County, Hamilton County, and University of Northern Iowa. We partnered up, decided to hold this event at the golf course, and instead of just making you fill out paperwork and leave, we actually created round tables all throughout the space, and at one was a CPA, and then another one was someone that knew social media. Over here was a lawyer. Over here was another small business. The Small Business Development Center would have been over here. So wherever you needed help, you didn't have to go to all of them. You went to the spots where you needed help, or you had questions or ideas. And in Iowa, we have a saying, feed them and they will come. I would imagine that works in Ohio too. Bring food. And this was at the golf course, so there was an open bar as well. And we had one small business. She'd been in business a couple of years and had bought a brick and mortar. And she stood up and she shared about the heartaches that she went through and the troubles that she had and how she overcame them. Sorry. And I think her story was better than anything else that people had talked to, because they got to meet with someone that had been through the hard stuff and could share a better story. And she's still in business today, too. Networking events, plenty of them, but what I suggest to start out with is coffee and calendars. So that's pretty simple. Call a gathering, bring your calendar for your events, and this is particularly good for the nonprofits. Show up with your calendar and go through who's doing what. So maybe on Tuesday of next week, you have a meeting at noon that's open to the public. Well, so do I. So we figure out how to, you do yours at noon, I'll do mine at 2, so that more people can come and be involved in your community. You've all done it. You gotta go to this church event or this school event. And you have to choose between the two because they're the same day and the same time. What if you figured out how to bring people together over coffee and made your calendars work? In your community, you do have a community calendar. Did you know that? And did you know if you called Michelle or send her an email, she'll put everything up on the community calendar for you. You can visit with Sarah and she can give you all that contact information afterwards. excuse me, backroom tours. That's my great nephew and me. I like to take my kids, my greats, we call them, to visit businesses. And we had been to Webster City Custom Meats, where they process bacon. So how can you go wrong with bacon, right? I'm sure they do other stuff, but that's all I remember. And we spent an hour and a half in the back room. It was fascinating. I had no idea that's what it took to process meat and how clean it was. As the chamber director at the time, it was really important for me to know all of those things. So when I talked about that company, I could really talk safely about them. Now imagine if your stores and your businesses partnered with each other and did those backroom tours. You do landscaping, right? Have you been to the mayor's office?
Yep.
Have you? Never mind. Have you
More
been,
than once.
have you been to the newspaper?
Inside of it, but not the back room.
Okay, so the backroom tours and newspapers are great, especially if they're doing their own printing and their own running. But you also get the opportunity to meet everybody that works there. And an editor can make a huge difference in the kind of thing you want put out public. So you want to build that relationship, and that's what backroom tours does for you. And also, if you're doing backroom tours of your manufacturing, it gives people an idea to see, maybe I might want to work there, or get to see what's going on there, and who already is working there. Is this the kind of job I want to have? A backroom tour is a great way to showcase a business, if they're doing things well. Online and off-site training. There is a winter 2019 course catalog for this location, so be sure you pick some. Renee, is that online or is that in print?
It's online and in print.
Okay, so they can get copies here before they leave, right?
Okay.
So it's my understanding they're doing some social media marketing classes, Instagram, Facebook, is that another one? So if you're not using those tools for your business, why don't you come here and learn how to do that affordably? Those courses are not very expensive at all. Now we're going to talk about small steps. The old way, you didn't do small steps. You planned, and you planned, and you planned some more. Then you got all these important people in the room, and you had very many meetings, and you drew up this great big huge hairy plan to change the world. It took you 2 years to do it, and you put it on a shelf because it was too big and hairy. You could not afford to fail. That plan was too big where you could not afford to fail. Well, the idea-friendly way is you take small steps. You test it out. You find out if you have a product worth talking about. You find out if you have a market that's going to buy that product. And don't worry about failing. When you're taking small steps, failure is just free high-quality research. And we should all get comfortable with failing because that's where you learn. And you can fix it and go forward, or you can give it up. Either way, it's not expensive. You're not dumping a whole bunch of money into it. So let's talk about what it takes to start a new business. You have to have a good location, which usually means you have to pay a decent amount of rent, or you have to buy it. Of course, if you have a product, you have to have your suppliers. You have to remodel the space. You have to have the money, so you have to talk to your banker and finance it. You're not going to make any money for about 5 years. Those are national statistics. You have to pay for advertising. And finally, you don't even know if the town's going to support it. It's hard to go into business, at least a new business. I'm going to tell you a story about Sean Anderson. Now, Sean Anderson loves kettle corn. He has a full-time job. He started making kettle corn on his stovetop at home. And his family loved it, and his friends loved it. His friends loved it so much that they said, you need to be making more of this and selling it, because this is really addictive. In fact, they call it kettle crack. He moved to his front yard. Got a great big huge metal iron pot that he makes the kettle corn in. Now remember, he's got a full-time job, so he does this on the weekends, and he'll take out his cell phone when he's done, and he's got a list of people that he texts, and he says, the crack is ready, bring your $5. And you pull up in his driveway or along the street, you hand your $5 out the window, and he gives you a bag of kettle crack. It went really well. He was very busy for a lot of weekends in a row. So busy, in fact, that his wife and him decided to buy a trailer. They took their show on the road. They went to every event, every fair, every festival in a 50-mile radius in good weather. They didn't want to stop in the wintertime, so they asked the city, can we set up our trailer on the corner there of West Twin Park? And to their credit, the city said, sure, go ahead. Why not? They sold soup and sandwiches, grilled cheese sandwiches, and of course kettle corn, because it's winter, and winter in Iowa is like it is here, cold. That worked so well, and they saved their money for quite a while, and they decided to buy a brick and mortar business. Now there was a young man in town that had a coffee shop, and it was business was good, but he didn't want to work 90 hours a week. It's a lot of work to run a business. But Sean and Laura were well prepared to do that because they were already doing it with their business. So they bought the coffee shop. Not only did they include the kettle corn and quiche and breakfast and coffee, but they invited the local winery to come in and do wine tastings on Friday night. And they sold their wine during the week. And of course they got some money off of that. Because they bought the building, the second floor is open. So they've gutted it out, and now they're trying to figure out, are we going to put a loft up there? Are we going to do a brewery up there? Are we going to do more coffee? So they're in the process of deciding by gathering their crowd to find out what their friends want and what their friends' friends want. They're following the idea-friendly method. So small steps plus lower barriers to entry. Takes less money to take a small step. Will give you the innovative rural business models. This is an empty lot. It was a block long. It's in Tynesta, Pennsylvania. It sat empty for 10 years. The building burned down. Small town of 500 people. And across the street is the rest of the town. And there's lots of camps up in the hills, so people go there to vacation in the summertime. And they couldn't figure out what to do. Nobody was coming to buy the lot to set up a new business. So the economic development people got this great idea and said, let's buy the lot and let's buy some garden sheds. Garden sheds. Let's put false 1800 fronts on them and let's do a little semicircle. And let's rent them out and let entrepreneurs try stuff out. This is what it looks like today. It's a full lot. They rent them out for between $50 and $70. They're open from April to October, usually Wednesday through Sunday. There's a green space in the middle so they can have live music and more people can come visit. There's a woman that makes American Doll clothes. There's a bakery that brings baked goods from a bigger town about 40 miles away. The winery at the edge of town comes in and sells wine out of one of those garden sheds. In fact, we were there last year, and the winery woman told me that their net profit from those summer months was $35,000 selling wine. Not to mention what they do on the edge of town. It's an opportunity to try your idea out, to test your market to see if it'll work, and to make some money. And you know what? If it doesn't work, you've lost $50 a month for 3 or 4 months. You have not lost $100,000 you'd have to invest into a brick and mortar business. We shared this idea at Rural X conference, and 2 young students, high school students from Miller, South Dakota, thought it was a really great idea, so they went back to their teacher and said, Miss Tammy, we want to do that empty lot thing, Tiny Market Village. And she said, well, that's great. I'm not doing it, you are. And of course, they were a little freaked out by that, but once they worked through it, they realized they actually could do it. They talked to the guy on the edge of town. In our part of the Midwest, every edge of a small town sells those kind of shacks and huts and garden sheds. And they asked him, it's wintertime, can we have 5 of those sheds to set up in this area downtown just for the month of December? Because we want to try this idea out. To his credit, he said yes. He also brought the fire pits that he makes. So there was a little bit of warmth going on. They had a woman that baked goods from home. They had the Asian Fusion restaurant in Miller, South Dakota, that nobody went to because they didn't know what Asian fusion was, and they sure weren't going to try it, that came and gave out samples. Santa Claus came, a photo booth came, a young high school student that had a photo booth, and she charged it for you to get funny pictures taken, and I can't remember what the fifth one was. But the bakery and the photo booth are now businesses in that community, out of an example of trying something out. Now, they failed, only one way. It's really cold in Miller, South Dakota in December. It's colder than you can even imagine. It's colder than Alaska, to give you some idea of how cold it is there. So now they do it in July, and they call it Christmas in July. Smart kids. This is in Pascagoula, Mississippi. Pascagoula got hit by a hurricane, one of the big ones. And FEMA came down and brought them FEMA buildings, FEMA sheds. And they didn't get to use them all because, you know, they're a small town and they take care of their own, and they're not going to use something the federal government supplies. Sound familiar? We're all like that. But they did clean up the FEMA sheds, and they created this area with a huge deck they built in an empty, muddy lot. And then they rent those FEMA sheds out to different businesses, much like they do in Tynesta. In fact, you can see a little bit bigger picture. It goes around the empty lot, and in the middle, they let pop-ups set up. So your Boy Scouts that are selling bottled water, your woman that's at home making cupcakes can try it out under her own tent. Different place, shorter term, but they're testing their product and trying their market to see if it works. Pascagoula, Mississippi, I just like saying it. This is in Aberdeen, South Dakota. The name of this business is Nacho Business. Come on, you know you want to say it. Nacho Business. He is literally a trailer in a parking lot. Imagine that. He's also the world's best marketer. You pull up, you order your nachos, he reaches through and he says, here, grab that. Is it heavy enough? Did I put enough meat in there? Open it up, open it up. How's it smell? Smells pretty good, doesn't it? Well, make sure you got enough. You need something else? You need one to take home with you? It's an amazing man. But you know what else he does? He goes, I'm a trailer in a parking lot. And that guy over there in that business lets me sit here. So you know what it's done for that guy over there in that business? It's brought more attention to him as well. So now you have two thriving businesses versus just an empty parking lot. Trucks and trailers. You guys all know what this is, right? Oh, maybe not. This is in Carrollton, Ohio. Jimmy's Barbecue. They started with food trucks. It's really good barbecue, by the way. They also do catering with their trucks, and they have a small spot as well where you can go in and sit down and eat. So food trucks are another great way to test your market out, to try things out and see if it works. You have to follow the laws and the rules and regulations, but you know, it's just paperwork, and you can make that happen as well. Store inside a store. This is here in town at the, it's Rebecca that owns this little business, high school. She has goats at home, and she makes goat milk products. They're pretty awesome. They're pretty awesome. And she's inside a beauty store. That small space is an opportunity that you're giving an entrepreneur to try their product out, to try their line out, to see if in fact it works. She's got marketing because she does her own, but she also has marketing from the beauty store that she's in. And they encourage people to try the products as well. Brilliant idea for a small store kid trying to do something with her goat milk. During events is another great way to try things out, take your small steps. In my community, we do Ladies' Night Out, the third Thursday of every October. And each store has it open, they stay open late. They often have some wine to sample, and they have great specials, and they have a business inside a business during that event. This is the furniture store and flooring. They do flooring and bedding as well. And the woman that's set up there owns the car wash. Now mind you, it's the end of October. She's in there selling car wash tickets. Buy 10, get 2 free. She comes every year and she sells out every year. because it's a good car wash, but she's giving you a great deal too. She's not only bringing her customers into Kevin's furniture store, but Kevin's customers are coming in and seeing her opportunity as well. So it's real good cross-pollination and an opportunity to market to more than one particular crowd. Tour of empty buildings. I had an idea. When I started at my chamber, I was the chamber director in Webster City, Iowa. As I was going to interview for the job, I'm driving downtown, I counted 14 empty buildings. It's a town of 7,800 people. That's a lot of empty buildings in downtown. And I knew if I got offered the job and I took it, I was gonna have to fill those buildings. And sure enough, I got the job, and that's one of the first things they said. We need a more robust downtown. We have to fill these empty buildings. 1 month later, we hosted a tour of empty buildings. Of those 14, 12 were on the tour. We either had the realtor or the owner or both in the building to tell you about square footage, to show you upstairs, to show you the basement, to answer your questions. We also put one of our chamber champions in the building, and those people knew what had been in the building many years ago. So they talked about all the different incarnations of that building. But surprising to us, they started giving suggestions on what else could go in that building. Surprised us all, and they gave really good suggestions. One of the buildings was the local movie theater, and because of that tour, a group of people got together and said, we have to save this movie theater. Closed on my first week on the job. We had lost a major manufacturer, Electrolux Corporation, went to Mexico, laid off a whole bunch of people in 2011. It was like the final straw. We had had enough. So the people got together, formed a 501c3, again, just filling out paperwork, and then asked the community to help save it. And help save it they did, in $5 and $10 and $20 increments. They raised $250,000 in 1 year and saved that movie theater. Bought the building, bought the digital equipment, cleaned it out. All those things happened with the help of the community, and decided we're gonna hire staff. We're not gonna ask volunteers, because we wanna help the job market. We wanna give a couple of people at least a job to get a foot up. Movie's still open today. The students named that group HERO, and it stands for Help Entertain and Restore Organization. So we went from 0 to hero, because a few people had this idea that they could save their movie theater. And it started by gathering their crowd, building their connections, and taking the small steps along the way to make it happen. And of course, I want you to steal ideas. You've got a few empty buildings here. Why not have an empty building tour of your own? Oglesby, Illinois did it. They called it the vacant building tour. You call it whatever you want. You can see all the addresses on it. Steal the ideas that you hear. Visit other communities. You find something that's working. Steal the idea. They don't own it. The community owns it. Pop-up shops. Now who does not know what a pop-up is? It's okay if you don't. Okay, so a pop-up, this is in my town. We had an empty building. One business has moved out, the new one doesn't come in until February. So we asked her, could we do for the month of December, bring our artists and craftspeople in to sell their stuff at whatever designated hours they want. It's a holiday pop-up. And like I said, this is in our town, and it was for a month long. You can do that in some of your buildings. Now I know you have some shared spaces for artists. I'm going to talk a little bit different about shared spaces for businesses. The old way of doing it, this is a JCPenney store, 15,000 square feet in Washington, Iowa. Can you even imagine trying to get a business in there? A retail business to fill 15,000 square feet? No. Very difficult to do that. But they had a good idea. They said, let's make it a shared space. Everything you're looking at, that Christmas tree is one vendor. That little wagon is one vendor. A little bit bigger for clothing. If you go to the back of the room, they have a bookstore in the back of the room. They started in one corner of that space and moved over till they had about 3 or 4 vendors, and they opened it up and let people come in and get the idea, well, I can go in there. I make jewelry at home. Let me bring my jewelry in and let's sell that. Today, it's called The Village, Washington, Iowa, 5,000 people, and it's still open. Because it's unique. It's specialty shops. Every time you go in there, you don't know what else is going to be new in there, what new products they have. The old guys sit in the middle and drink coffee and pay for it. But they have an opportunity to have a place to hang out as well. This is the Chickasaw Nation in Oklahoma, and the elders decided they wanted their youth to remember the old ways of doing things, the old way of creating art. So they opened up the Arts Maker Space. And they had some funding from the Chickasaw Nation, but they also make enough products that they sell the things that they make. And the youth are learning how to do it. That's kind of a good story, keeping our old ways of doing things. This is an Airbnb. So it's kind of like a hotel, but better. It's renting out a room or a portion of your house for somebody to stay overnight, and they pay you. Ellsworth, Iowa is 1,000 people. It's about 30 miles away from Ames, where it's Iowa State University is at. And Robbie rents out his one bedroom for $50 a night. And every time he puts it up on Airbnb, it's filled like that. Because parents are coming for the weekend to see their kids. You cannot get a hotel room for $50 a night with a kitchen and your own bathroom. When you get your own bathroom. A nice place with free parking for $50 a night in Ames. You can, 30 miles away. And they love it. Because you can see it's kind of cool. Use a movie free if you'd like it. If you think you don't have people doing these kind of things, entrepreneurs in your town, you would be wrong. They are in your town. They're in their basements, they're in their garages, they're doing really cool things. This is my friend Clay Griffiths. His 16-year-old son developed a theme for WordPress blogs called Headway. 16 years old. These kids are really smart, by the way. They're in Clay Center, Kansas, really out in the middle of nowhere. And they're still there. It was 5 years before the town knew they were there. Although they were paying their taxes all along, nobody really knew they were there. You want to look for these people. Ask your kids. Ask your neighbors who have cars coming and going all the time. What are you doing back there? What kind of tools are you bringing in there? What's going on? Feel free to talk about it and find out who's doing unique and interesting things in their home. So now, let's talk about what you can do right away. And this is based on things I heard from you guys. What you want and what you'd like to do. Ninja teams. Now, I've talked a little bit about ninja with some of you. And ninjas are kind of cool. You pull 3 or 4 people together and you say, let's go do something, and then we'll sneak out. And the way it happened was Roscommon County, Michigan, which is north of Detroit several hours, is where people went to vacation. And when things went all to heck in Detroit, the vacation went all to heck too. And I was up there doing this same kind of experiment with them and standing on a corner, and there was a bar across the street that had one of those really cool neon 1950 neon signs pointing down to this beautiful brick building that said bar, except the windows were dirty. There were weeds all around the building, and it was very unattractive on the Main Street side. Come on back when you're ready. Okay, on the Main Street side. And I looked at everybody and I'm like, well, what is that? Is it open? Is it closed? And they go, oh no, it's open. The entrance is in the parking lot on the other side. So people don't even drive by here and see this side. Locals don't. I'm like, well, why don't you become ninjas? And of course they said, what's that? I'm like, well, 6 o'clock in the morning, go over there with your weed whackers and your Windex, clean that up, wash the windows, 3 or 4 of you, it'll take you an hour. And then, when you leave a note for the owner. And of course, one guy says, I know what to say. I'm like, no, that's not what you're going to say. What you're going to say is, thank you for doing business in our town. It matters. People need to be thanked, even when they're not doing all the stuff you think they should be doing. And it's a gentle reminder to show them what is possible. So where could you go power wash something? I've seen a few buildings that could stand a good power washing. You could have a ninja downtown. Each store owner could be a ninja. Go out and sweep your sidewalk in the morning. That's a ninja move. Take baby steps. Of course, I want you to go have a cup of coffee or a drink and ask for the story of the place. Have you guys met this young man? He's a store owner in your town. He owns High Scores.
Yeah.
If you have kids that like gaming, Xbox and such, go in there, have a bite to eat, and let the kids go game. He came to this town. He told me he came here because there was nothing to do in this town. He wanted to make a difference. So here he is. Nice young man, kind of funny. Feel free to visit the stores you don't normally go into. Ask them to share their story with you. You'd be surprised how friendly people are. Now, if you're going in a restaurant, don't bother them at noon or at 5 o'clock. Go at 10 or at 3 in the afternoon. I want you to find your marketers. These are your high school kids. The girl, you see where I'm sitting, the girl sitting next to me does social media marketing for a company in town. Does paid work, social media marketing for a company in town. How could you enlist some of these kids to help your community out? Go find your marketers. Sign into Facebook, go look at Instagram, have somebody show you Twitter, see who's out there making some noise, find out who can help you, and give them a chance to help you, or to teach you. Let's start rebranding Fostoria. Fotown, Yoketown. No, you don't like that one, huh? It wasn't my idea. But it is positive, okay? Why don't you start a rebranding of your community? But better yet, ask people what they think, just like in this room. What would you like for branding? Give me a slogan, give me an idea. What can we do? How can we make people not only live in our town, but people outside of our community start sharing good stories about us instead of bad? Tiffin has 14 murders and you have one. Guess which one people hear about? You're one. You need to change that. And murders was a bad choice. Robbers. Drug arrests. Yeah. Get people in your community to help you. Try some graphic designs in the windows. And I'm talking the windows of empty buildings. I just found this on the internet. I thought it looked kind of cool. And it says now available. You could have a fake barber shop put up there. You could have pictures of your natural resources put up there to give ideas for tourism to people. All kinds of things. And those graphics are not overly expensive. Work with your local organizations for some grant funding or matching funding to do that. And, you know, we're talking $500 for a window. How can you make that happen? 50 people give 5, is my math right? 50 people give $10, and you've got a window covered. Or if 50 people give 5, you've got half the money for matching funds, and you can make a difference. What's $5? I buy a cup of coffee for $5. Use your empty buildings for pop-ups. Now this was one of an old Mexican restaurant in my town, and these girls were from Des Moines, Iowa, our state capital, and they wanted to come down and see if they had products that would sell in rural areas, because they wanted to open a business, but they wanted to make sure it worked not only in urban, but in rural. They sold out one night, ladies' night out. We let them set up. They sold out. They have really great products. And now they opened a business, unfortunately not in my town, but in Des Moines. They've opened up a business. They do take their show on the road though. So every so often we'll see them come through town to give us a chance to buy their products. Support your entrepreneurs that are already here doing something. For Christ's sake, go buy that woman's lotion or her boo-boo cream. That's what she calls it, boo-boo cream. Look around you and see where you have entrepreneurs doing some cool stuff. Support them with your words, support them with your dollars, and share it on Facebook, on social media. Call the paper up and say, did you know they're doing this really cool thing? We got 15-year-olds taking goat milk and making neat things. Inform your paper and radio what's going on. Let them know the good news, not always the bad news. Hold a newcomers meeting. This is Bennettsville, South Carolina, and they're about an hour and a half away from Myrtle Beach. Much cheaper to live in Bennettsville. So they wanted to invite all the newcomers to come together and give them an opportunity to ask questions. And the way they did it is they had the realtor extend a personal invitation for the newcomers to come. They didn't email them, they didn't send them a letter, they personally asked them, had their realtors ask them to come. And this is the beginning of the meeting and lots more people showed up. The guy in the green shirt has now opened his own antique store. The two ladies in front live in another town about 5 miles away, and they started their own cleanup committee. And they just came to see if they could burn their garbage, to see where the recycling center was, to see what the hours were of where they could pay their electric bill. It's that general meeting where you go to find information out. And they met each other and they networked, and they're creating real magic in a small town, hour and a half away from Myrtle Beach. Take one of your empty windows in an empty building and put a display in it. This is from your historical society. Do you know the John Rogers Producing Company story? Who does not know who John Rogers is? It's okay to raise your hand. I didn't know. Steve? Stand up and share with us who John Rogers is.
John B. Rogers.
I'm going to make him go to work. I'm going to make him work because this is the president of the Historical Society. It's the retired president behind him.
Why don't you ask him? He knows the story.
Go ahead. Would you share with us for a moment, sir? Would you stand up so people can hear you? Mostly me.
John B. Rogers was a Fostoria High School graduate in the late 1890s. He went to the University of Michigan Law School because, for some unaccountable reason, he wanted to be a lawyer. His eyes went bad and he could not practice law. He comes back to Fostoria. He's depressed, but when he was in high school, he was a song and dance guy. They had what they called harmonia or glee clubs or singing societies, and Rogers was talented at that when he was in high school. So he was a member of a club called the Knights of Pythias, and the Knights of Pythias were going to put on a show in order to raise money for a charitable cause. And they said, you were good at that stuff, you put on the show. So he puts on the show, and the show is a success, and it raises money for the charitable cause. And there were some Knights of Pythias from, I forget if it's Bloomdale or North Baltimore. I think it's North Baltimore, but it doesn't matter. They said, you put on a show for us too. And he does that, and it's a success as well. So in 1903, the John B. Rogers Producing Company is born. It becomes the largest producer of amateur theatricals in the United States. They started out doing stuff that you might recognize as vaudeville. Later on, they switched to historical pageants. But if your town is 100 years old, you want to put on a dramatic historical pageant about your town. Fostoria had one in 1954 and another in 1976. But Rogers would supply a director, and Browning Payne, who some of you know, is still around, and Browning was a Rogers director. And what you did was they supplied the costumes, the set, the lighting, the director, and the town supplied everything else. And Rogers supplied the costumes. The cast was all supplied by the town. And of course, they wrote lots of music. You sent Rogers a little history of your town, and they had this kind of boilerplate script that they would plug in. And then, and there was lots of singing in it, so everybody and their mother who thought they could sing or who was in a church choir or a barber shopper or something, therefore hundreds of people, depending on the size of the town, could be in the show. And the John B. Rogers Producing Company lasted in Fostoria until about 1980. They put on shows in every state in the United States, every province of Canada. They were written up in the National Kiwanis magazine, Reader's Digest, American Magazine, which no longer exists. But they were quite famous. I'm running on a little here. George Cameron, who was the mayor of Fostoria in the 30s and 40s, He taught Eric everything he knows. He was at a mayoral convention, a national mayor's convention, and somebody saw, George Cameron, Fostoria, Ohio, and a guy walked up and said, "Oh, that's where the Rogers Company is from." A lot of Rogers' money went to support charities in the towns where they put on the shows. They went out of business and moved to Pittsburgh in 1980. They got done in by television. But there you go.
Thank you. Let's give him a hand. So my thought is, what if you took this exact display and put it in a empty window with the note, John B. Rogers, our local hero. Visit the Historical Society for